We're going to talk about cholesterol
and hormones.
and hormones.
What that guy said.
Welcome to the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. Join strength and conditioning expert Roberto Parker as he shares his over 35 years of experience in training athletes and helping people achieve their fitness goals. Now here's your moderator, Chris Whiting, with Coach Roberto.
Hey, everybody, welcome once again to another exciting episode of the Health Detective Podcast with the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, your idol and mine, Mr. Roberto Parker. Welcome. Yeah.
Fired up and ready to go.
How you doing tonight, Roberto?
I'm doing awesome. Doing awesome.
You're fired up. You're awesome. That's great. And tonight's kind of exciting. Not as exciting as the last episode because we don't have Wyatt. However, you're the main draw here, and we're going to talk about a couple of things tonight. One, I have too much of, and the other, I probably don't have nearly enough of, cholesterol and hormones. So,
Hey Chris, before you start,
yeah,
we've been getting at the station numerous cards and letters and just requests for a Wyatt show. So if we could sign him up, I mean, he's a real superstar.
Hey, maybe Roberto can talk to him. I don't know. We could have the Wyatt Power Hour.
There you go.
Yeah. And that was kind of fun. I mean, I'm kidding. You're a wonderful draw. And Wyatt was fantastic. So kind of fun to have guests on every once in a while. So I think we'll do that in the future too.
In fact, the next one, we're going to do that, right, Paul?
That's right.
Okay.
Our next episode.
Correct. Yeah, we're going to have, what I was talking about right now, Dr. Heather Carden. She's a local health practitioner. She's going to be speaking on hormones, actually hormone replacement therapy as relates to women.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a very big show. A lot of ladies out there have questions regarding hormone replacement therapy, going through menopause, premenopause, perimenopause. So that's going to be an important show for you ladies in particular to watch.
Hey, that's awesome. And that's 2 weeks from tonight that it will air live and then it will be available. What's the date on that? May 3rd? Something like that?
I don't have a calendar.
I don't know. 2 weeks from tonight. That's going to be
May 3rd.
exciting.
That's right. May 3rd.
May 3rd. Okay. However, before we get to that, we got lots of exciting stuff to talk about tonight, like cholesterol and hormones.
Yeah.
Was that two separate topics, or do they relate to each other?
Well, they're going to relate because here's the thing. Cholesterol is probably one of the most misunderstood, misconstrued medical idiosyncrasies that are out there. And here's the reason why. You just said you don't have enough cholesterol. I guess that's what you meant, right? Or you had too much cholesterol, right?
Too much cholesterol. Yeah.
That is not necessarily the case. Because your cholesterol is high according to the standards does not mean that it is toxic, that is detrimental to your long-term health.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I want to kind of make a picture here. I want to talk about the raw materials of what cholesterol is made of, and I'm going to kind of segue into the pros and cons of high and low cholesterol.
Okay.
Cholesterol raw materials are as follows: fats, LDLs, HDLs, B vitamins, and acetylcholine A, which most people probably never even heard of. But those are the raw materials of what cholesterol is made of. So basically, fat is what it's made of. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, the next step down, if I'm looking at a flow chart, and which I have one in front of me here, is a hormone called pregnenolone. The next one down is DHEA. Now, a lot of people have heard of DHEA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, DHEA subdivides off and splits into, you've heard of these, estrogen and testosterone.
Yes, I have heard of those.
Yes. I
Yes.
figured you had. Okay, now with ladies, and this would be a good question for Heather in a couple weeks, there's 3 types of estrogen: estradiol, estriol, and estrone, depending upon what phase the female is going through. Is she pregnant? Is she premenopause? Is she postmenopause? Depending upon those 3 factors, that will determine which type of estrogen is dominant in her system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other side of the flip chart, there's a stuff called progesterone. You probably heard of that,
I
which is
have, but
also another, which is more related to women, but men have some too. That is also part of that flow chart. And there's
okay.
another hormone in that flow called cortisol, and another one called aldosterone, which a lot of people never heard of, but that's more related to um, blood pressure and that kind of thing. So,
And
but
cortisol, is that the stress hormone that people talk
yes,
about? Yeah.
cortisol.
Okay.
Yes, cortisol. Now, let's go all the way back up to the top. So, if your cholesterol is too low,
Mm-hmm.
how will that affect those hormones, those sex hormones that we just talked about? Testosterone, progesterone, aldosterone, estrogen, testosterone. Okay. If you're not sufficiently feeding the raw materials into your body, which makes good cholesterol, that will adversely affect down the stream testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol.
And does it give you too much of those or too little of those?
Too little.
Too
So
little. Okay.
now most people feel as though there's a misconception that if I eat too much fat, that's going to do what to my cholesterol?
Make it go up.
Make it go up. That is not the case. High cholesterol, and I should say really high triglyceride level, which I'll talk about in a second, is more so a byproduct of hyperinsulinemia. In other words, too much insulin. How does your body make too much insulin? We've talked about this before in the past. Too much sugar, too much grain,
Mm-hmm.
too much alcohol, too much bread, too much processed meats. That will increase high insulin levels, leading to hyperinsulinemia. Now, HDL versus LDL. People think that LDL is a bad guy, HDL is a good guy,
Right.
correct? Okay. HDL is recycled cholesterol. Okay.
Oh.
It goes through the system, it goes back to the liver. LDL is brand new, fresh cholesterol. Now, here's the thing about LDL and HDL. If they are both flowing and active in your system, and you're not stagnant in terms of exercise, in terms of getting the right type of foods, they will not become toxic. Now, I'm going to use this example. You have a cholesterol level of 250. Would that
Mm-hmm.
be considered high?
Yes.
Okay. There's this other component called triglycerides.
Mm-hmm.
Triglycerides is also part of the lipid cholesterol family. Triglycerides is more of a reservoir, you might say. It's only used when necessary. When triglyceride levels are extremely high, cholesterol is extremely high, that is problematic.
Okay.
Now, when triglycerides are low, but cholesterol is high, that is less problematic. Triglycerides are a direct product of hyperinsulinemia, which can cause hardening of the arteries, clogging of the arteries, and typically that is a result. Triglycerides is most of the excess body fat you have in your body is a result of high triglyceride levels. If you look at your lab report that you get from your doctor, it's going to have your lipid panel. It's going to have your HDL, your LDL, your cholesterol, and your triglycerides. If
Mm-hmm.
your triglycerides are over, I wrote this down here. Now, this is going to vary from lab to lab, but the labs that I use, if your triglyceride levels are over 70, that's really too high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now one more thing. There's this thing called the cholesterol triglyceride ratio, in which you divide your cholesterol by, let me get this right here, cholesterol divided by your triglyceride levels.
Mm-hmm.
And that number should be from 0 to 2. If it's higher, because I'm looking at labs here now, when that number is higher than 2, we got to talk about, okay, getting your cholesterol right. If your cholesterol is, say, 250 and your triglycerides are 50, which is very low and actually pretty good, that number is probably going to fall within 0 to 2, which is good. Now, having said all this, I am not a medical doctor. If you have questions, and the reason I want people to listen to this tonight is to ask your doctor these types of questions. Do your own research. Triglyceride levels are more indicative of toxic cholesterol in your system, which can lead to hardening of the arteries and clogging of the arteries. But our bodies need cholesterol in order to make hormones. Without hormones, we don't function. Our brains don't function. The tissues in most of our bodies don't function without cholesterol. Cholesterol is in every aspect of your body, of bodily tissues. We need cholesterol. So to say that I'm going to get my cholesterol real low, that is not a healthy thing. In fact, they have done studies, and what they have found is that people who have very low cholesterol, which is lower than it should be, typically exhibit violent behavior, depression, anxiety, bipolarism. I said a
Holy
mouthful,
cow.
Chris. Yeah. So that is why I wanted to do this show tonight about cholesterol and hormones. Here's the way you can improve good, healthy cholesterol. Eat good fatty foods, good saturated fats.
Yum. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Eliminate excess carbohydrates. I'd say limit your carbs to no more than, for most people, no more than 100 grams of carbohydrates per day.
Okay.
Per day.
Yeah.
For some people, even less than that. If you're trying to lose a lot of body fat, you have to get it down to 50 or 60 grams per day or less, possibly. But basically, 100 grams of carbs per day.
Wow.
Increase your fat intake. Keep your protein intake moderate to fairly high. Now, protein, it varies, because if you're trying to put on a lot of muscle, you need more protein. But for most people, I would say protein-wise, get at least 90 to 100 grams of protein a day if you can.
Can I tell a personal story here that I believe relates to this?
Go right ahead, Chris.
So in 2019, I got my physical, and I won't tell you everything the doctor did to me. Some of it's embarrassing, but he had me do, I think, just like a CBC, a blood draw. And it came back that my bad cholesterol was too high. So he wanted to put me on a statin. I chose not to do that. I came back the next year, but the next year, 2020, I worked for the employer I'm with right now, Quest Diagnostics. And one of the benefits that we get as an employee is they give us a free once a year huge panel of tests, way bigger than most doctors order.
Right.
My cholesterol came back. The bad was high. The good was high. And then it did, I believe, that ratio you're talking about. And the ratio was fine. And so my doctor said, if I was just looking at your bad cholesterol, I'd say, let's get you on a statin right away. He goes, but having this whole picture here and seeing your ratio is in a good range, then we're fine. Just, watch yourself.
I say that was a very smart move on the doctor's part.
Okay.
Because here's the thing about statin drugs. They can lower vitamin D. I wrote this down too. Lower CoQ10, lower vitamin K, and they can also possibly bring on diabetes and dementia.
Good Lord.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, you're swapping one bad for another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Statin drugs will lower your cholesterol. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Now here's the other thing about some of the long-term effects of low cholesterol. You ever heard of low T for men?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, if you're listening out there, low T could be an upstream problem of you not consuming enough good, whole, saturated fats in your eating plan. So instead of going out buying a bunch of drugs from a doctor or some of these crazy supplements, start eating better food. Get off the booze, get off the excess carbs, get off the grains and the cereals and that kind of crap, and start putting the good raw materials in your system that's going to give you good, healthy cholesterol. Now, one more thing I want to talk about. I'm fired up, as you can tell.
I can tell. There's a lot of passion.
The thing about cholesterol is this: when you go get a test, there is a test called the LPP. Now, you did this with me, I believe,
I think
a
I
couple of
did.
years ago.
The LPP?
The LPP, the lipoprotein particle, the lipoprotein particle test. Lipoproteins are proteins. Cholesterol in and of itself is an oily substance, and it has to be transported to different tissues of the body. And it can't do that unless lipoprotein gives it an escort. Because what happens when you mix oil and water together?
Well, they don't mix very well.
They don't mix. And the blood is mainly water. So if you didn't have lipoproteins, guess what? Cholesterol would not do its job, because blood and the oily portion of cholesterol would not be a good mix. So lipoprotein gives it a ride to the tissues and gives it a ride back to the liver. That's the purpose of lipoproteins. Now, but having said that, the LPP is this. It will determine the health of the cholesterol particles, the molecular structure of cholesterol. So if your cholesterol is like big white puffy clouds like this, and there's very few of them, that's good. Whereas if your cholesterol level or particle levels are very small and hard and dense and high in volume, that is problematic, because what happens is those particles get caught up, trapped in the blood vessels of the body. They become trapped. They become toxic. Why? Because they're not moving with the stream of the river. Mm-hmm. They become toxic. That's when you get atherosclerosis. That's when you get arteriosclerosis. That's from hyperinsulinemia, from eating too much shit in your diet.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to look at just not the cholesterol level, but the molecular structure of cholesterol as well.
Yeah. Hey, can we go back to the low T for a second? Because you hear a lot about that. And I think the most thing that guys think about is, oh, my wiener is not working right. But there are other indications of low T, right? Like what else might men be on the lookout for to let them know they might have an issue with that?
If they have low T?
Yeah.
Well, brain fog is one, because if your testosterone levels are not what it should be, your brain's not going to function. You're going to have some brain fog.
Okay.
That's one. You're going to have maybe not enough, aggressive drive or competitive drive in what you're doing, mood swings, that kind of thing. So those are some of the symptoms of it.
Okay.
Was that what you meant?
Gotcha. So there are other things to watch out for than.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay, now here's another thing, just not for the gentlemen, ladies. A lot of women, when they get to that premenopause phase of their life, they start losing what? Estrogen.
Husbands. Oh, yes. Gotcha.
Very funny, Chris.
Yeah. They start losing estrogen. Oh, I bet that's a good lead into our next show too.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back up the food chain, what is the mother load is cholesterol. So when cholesterol is not what it should be, does that affect estrogen? Say yes.
Yes, it does.
Does it affect testosterone? Say yes.
Yes.
Does it affect progesterone? Say yes.
Yes. Am I at church? What's going on here?
Does it affect cortisol? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Cholesterol is the mother load, baby.
Yeah. Roberto, if you need a witness, I'm your witness right here, man. You should have been a preacher. Wow.
Hey, I'm preaching tonight, brother.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're bringing it tonight. Wow. Now, we talk about this a lot, but for folks that may be tuning in for the first time or not a current listener, you talk about good raw materials, not the grains, not the sugars, not the alcohols, but what are the types of foods, specific types of examples of foods people should be eating?
Well, there's fat-based from animals and there's fat-based from plants. I personally, professionally lean more towards the animals because the animals have a lot more food density, nutritional density, in my opinion. Now,
Mhm.
some will argue with me on that, some vegetarians, some vegans out there. And I'm not opposed to a person eating a good source of plant-based foods, but saturated fats, it's got to come from animals.
Aha.
Okay. I'm
Plus, they're
talking,
delicious.
I'm talking fish, I'm talking grass-fed butters, I'm talking eggs, I'm talking free-range chickens, I'm
Mhm.
talking hogs, wild hogs, if you can go hunt them down, or just basically organic animals that have been living out in the wild.
Gotcha.
Bison that are grass-fed.
Hmm.
If you can't get that, do the best you can. At least get the types of meats that don't have all the hormones in it and all the nitrates and that kind of stuff too. So, that's probably the second best, but try to avoid a lot of processed meats, like the bolognas and the hot dogs and those sort of things. So, you want to get good, fresh, whole meat, salmon,
Aha.
fish from cod, fish from the ocean. Those are good. So, sardines. Now, a lot of people don't like sardines, but sardines are loaded with good omega-3 fats. So basically, omega-3 fatty acids. Now, more plant-based would be avocados and olives. Those are probably two of the best I can think of.
Oh, okay.
Okay, nuts.
Gosh, which are
Now,
also both delicious.
right now, the
Yeah.
thing about nuts is problematic for some people because nut is an allergen. See, for some people, nut is a major allergen, and so are eggs, by the way. So some people are allergic to certain types of nuts. Some people are allergic to eggs and that sort of thing. So those can be problematic, but most people are not allergic to meat. Most people are not allergic to fish unless it's shellfish or something like that. So those are probably your best choices. Most people are probably not going to be allergic to things like avocados and olives.
Hmm. Good, good. Yeah. And I know you're a big proponent of getting most of your nutrition from whole, real foods, but are there any supplements that you're a fan of that may help with cholesterol?
Uh, yes. Well, first of all, vitamin D is a supplement. Vitamin D, it's not really going to help your cholesterol level as much, but vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin that is a pro-hormone that every cell in your body also uses. So when you're taking in good cholesterol and you're out in the sun or taking your vitamin D supplement, you'll use vitamin D much more efficiently. Okay.
Okay.
Now, as far as supplements increasing cholesterol, oh gosh, I can't think of any offhand right now. But man, to me, it's just some of the basic raw
Yeah.
materials. Like I said, there's probably some things out there, and maybe in some protein supplements you could take that has some cholesterol in it. But I can't really think of any offhand. Got me on that one.
I don't, I mean, the best way is through food and the fuel
Yeah,
you put in your body.
right.
When the doctor was going to put me on the statin, I may have this wrong, but I was looking up alternatives to statins. And I think like red rice yeast was
Yeah.
something that came up that is a supplement that could potentially help lower cholesterol. But then when I researched more, there's some counterindications to taking that too. So
Yeah, I just think the best source are good fatty acids via your diet. I mean, you just got to do it. I
yeah,
mean, taking supplements. The thing about taking supplements is it is a supplement, is an adjunct. It's not meant to be a replacement for food.
right.
Follow me? So you got to
Yep.
get good food in your system. There's probably some supplements that have some cholesterol in them, but like I said, I can't really think of any offhand that I recommend.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And how much of an impact does exercise have on cholesterol and
Oh,
hormones?
huge, because you got to keep things flowing, because once again, if you're not active, some of those particles get trapped in the blood vessels because there's not enough blood flow. Then the muscles are not working. The blood flow is not what it should be. The liver's not pumping out like it should be. And yeah, exercise is huge. Activity every day,
Hmm.
exercise at least twice a week, in my opinion, at least twice a week, maybe
Yeah.
3 times a week. But activity is something you can do every day. Go out and walk, do maybe some yoga type movements, do some Tai Chi,
Mhm.
Now, I like more challenging type things like weightlifting or doing body weight push-ups, pull-ups, that kind of thing. You got to engage the muscles, because the muscles, once again, communicate with everything in your body. And the muscles, your muscles are really like organs of the body, believe it or not, because muscles make myokines. Myokinese is like a hormone that communicates with different organs of the body: your bladder, your kidneys, your prostate, your uterus, everything. So you've got to get those muscles strong, because muscles communicate with every tissue in your body, every organ in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words,
Gotcha.
if you're just
Yeah,
gonna walk all the time, that's good for a while, but eventually you got to challenge the muscles more than that. If you got to walk with weights in your hand, that's better. Walking up and down a hill, that's going to challenge you a little bit more in terms of your muscle system and your nervous system. So you got to engage the nervous system and the muscular system as you get stronger, because exercise is progression. If you haven't done anything in 30 years, going for a walk around the block might seem really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that for about 3 or 4 months, now you got to bump it up. You got to go longer. You got to make it more intense by holding weights. Maybe get to the gym and do some light exercises to strengthen your back and your legs. You've got to bump it up a little bit, because the body eventually will plateau.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're just walking, you're kind of neglecting the upper body, I'm assuming. So
yeah, you are. I mean, like I said, unless you're holding some dumbbells in your hand or some of
yeah.
those hand weights that people use, I personally think that everybody should do some sort of weightlifting type of weight training,
Mm-hmm.
separate from just walking or running with them. You've got to do a little bit more isolated type of muscular movement activity.
Mm-hmm.
So now some people don't like lifting weights. If not, then do body weight stuff. Just do, let's say you're walking, for every 2 blocks, get on there and do 2 push-ups or 5 push-ups or 10 push-ups. Find a tree branch, do some pull-ups or something. But you got to
Yeah.
challenge your muscles and challenge the nervous system. And once again, that will help hormones like testosterone and like just estrogen for the ladies. See, the biggest problem with females, and this is another
Don't
build
get
up
me
for,
started on the biggest problem with females.
yes, yeah. Well, okay, this is kind of a lead up to our for Dr. Heather in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Women start losing estrogen when they hit perimenopause. Perimenopause happens before menopause. You start showing the signs of menopause. Your period becomes irregular. It's not as consistent. You start maybe losing some of your hair. You start getting more fatigue. You start having certain hot flashes. So those are the signs of perimenopause. Now you can offset a lot of that stuff by, once again, eating good whole foods, which will help the mother load of cholesterol, which will also help downstream with those estrogen levels.
Wow, that's a great lead in, and it kind of has me excited for the next episode. That's going to be cool.
Yep.
So,
So, yeah, and Dr. Heather's going to talk about the specificity, some of the biochemistry of hormone replacement therapy,
mm-hmm.
because there's females out there and women out there that I've talked to that want to get it because they're so frustrated with their weight. They don't like the way they look. I don't have my 25-year-old body anymore. So they get the hormone replacement therapy. What are the pros and the cons of that? And she's going to go into that. And I'm going to talk more about some of the lifestyle choices you need to make in and around that. So I won't give it away right now, but I'm going to talk
Gotcha.
about more about the lifestyle choices you need to do. She's going to get more into the biochemistry of it.
Well, that's going to be exciting. So there's a good teaser for all the folks at home. No spoilers there, but gives you an idea of what's coming, which is going to be fun. Anything else to add tonight?
Well, that's just it. I mean, I kind of hit the basics tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have any questions, contact me at rwpsports@yahoo.com. My phone number is 816-405-7703. Everybody's a little bit different. There are certain people who have genetically high cholesterol, and they freak out about it.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, you gotta, and I would encourage everybody to do this: challenge your doctor. Don't be an ass about it. Don't be a jerk about it. Just ask your medical doctor questions about triglycerides, about cholesterol ratio, about particles, cholesterol particles. Just don't say, too many doctors, in my opinion, just look at straight cholesterol. They don't look at the other biomarkers involving cholesterol.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you said it there. Every individual's different, and I know in your professional practice, you work with individuals for exercise plans and nutrition programs. And I guess before we sign off, just tell everybody one more time how they can get in touch with you if they want to work with you.
Okay, I'm also on Facebook. You can go there. Hard work, hard bodies. You can also go to Facebook. I have a forum called Innovative Sports Training Fitness Forum. You can go to my where my phone number is 816-405-7703. Email is rwpsports@yahoo.com.
Awesome. Hey, Roberto, thank you as always for an enlightening time together. This was fun, and we'll look forward to next week with our special guest.
All right, 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Yes, sorry. 2 weeks from tonight, May 3rd.
All right, take care, guys. God bless.
Right. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. You can contact Roberto at 816-405-7703 or by email at rwpsports@yahoo.com with any comment or question you may have. Join us next time for the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. The Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker has been a KCTK production, produced by Roberto Parker, Chris Whiting, and Paul Lavoda. All rights reserved. For more information and content, email us at kctkradio@gmail.com.